In this lesson, we'll be working with our React application to communicate with the server and allow a user to sign in via Google OAuth. The first thing we'll do is create the GraphQL documents for the new GraphQL query and mutations we've created. In part 2 of the course, we'll group all our GraphQL documents in our app within a GraphQL folder within a lib folder in the source folder. We've created 3 new GraphQL root level fields that can be queried. We'll create folders for each of these fields. We'll create the auth URL folder that will have an index file within the queries folder, which is to contain the auth URL query document. We'll create a login folder and logout folder in the mutations folder, with both having an index file. These index files are to contain the login and logout mutation documents. In the auth URL index file, we'll import the GQL tag from the Apollo Boost package and export a GraphQL document to make a query for the auth URL field. We'll name the query auth URL as well. In the login index file, we'll import the GQL tag and export a constant to contain the document to make the login mutation. We'll name the mutation login and state it is to accept an input argument with which the mutation field will accept as well. We'll have all the fields of the viewer object be queried from the result of the mutation: ID, token, avatar, has wallet, and did request. In the logout index file, we'll import the GQL tag and export a constant to contain the logout mutation. We'll also have all fields from the viewer object be queried from the mutation result. Perfect. With our GraphQL query and mutations defined on the client, we can auto-generate the corresponding TypeScript definitions with the CodeGen scripts we've created in the package JSON file. But first, we need to modify the CodeGen generate script. In part 1 of the course, we had our GQL documents within TSX files in our source folder. In part 2, we'll keep all GraphQL documents in their own TS files within the lib GraphQL folder. In addition, we've mentioned how Apollo CodeGen auto-generates a global types file that contains enum and input object type values of the GraphQL schema. Apollo CodeGen by default kept it in the root of the client project. In part 2 of the course, we'll try and have this global types file be kept within the lib GraphQL folder. So we'll apply the -- global type files option and state the file will be in source lib GraphQL and the name of the file will be global types. We can go ahead and delete the old generated folder for the global types file that was kept in the root of the project. We'll run the CodeGen schema script in our terminal to regenerate the schema JSON file in our client project. And then we'll run the CodeGen generate command to generate the TypeScript definitions from our GraphQL query and mutations. When complete, we'll notice the auto-generated TypeScript definitions within the folders where we've kept our GraphQL documents. We'll want our users to log in a /login path of our application, and we'll want a corresponding login component or page to be shown in this path. We'll first create this login component in our sections folder. And for now, we'll simply have this login component display a header element that says login. We'll then import the login component in our index file and create a new route that will have the login component be shown in the /login path. With our client Webpack server running, if we go to localhost 3000/login, we'll see our login component be rendered. Before we continue, let's make our login component more presentable. Our login page will look like the following. It will have a simple card with some details telling the user to sign in if they're interested in booking rentals. We'll also add some secondary text. With our initial design and preparation, we had the idea of directing users to a privacy form of sorts, but now we'll just simply say that the user, if they are to sign in, they'll be taken to Google's consent form. The three main components from &design we're going to use to help build this component are the layout, card, and typography components. The layout component helps handle the overall layout of the page. The card component is a simple rectangular container, that is to say a card, and the typography component gives us some simple styles for heading, body texts, and lists. We're also going to add in classes that we've already created to additionally add some custom styling. Let's begin creating the UI of our login component. As a note, we've just added an asset labeled Google logo that we're going to use for the sign in button. We'll provide this image asset as part of the rest of the source code for this lesson. We'll first import the card, layout, and typography components from &design. We'll then destruct the child content component from layout and the child text and title components from the parent typography. In our login component, return statement will return the content component with the class applied. And the content component will have a card component. The card component will have a div element, that is to have the intro section. This introduction section will display a title where the waving emoji is being shown. And another title that says log in to Tiny House. There will also be a text statement, that is to say sign in with Google to start booking available rentals. Outside of the intro, we'll have a button that will have the Google image and a span that says sign in with Google. Finally, we'll have secondary text that will state by signing in, you'll be redirected to the Google consent form to sign in with your Google account. Taking a look at our login component at this moment, we can see that the card looks like what we expect it to look. To have it vertically aligned in the middle, we'll introduce a small change in the root index file. We'll import the layout component in the index file and wrap our switch statement with the layout component with an ID of app. And now we'll see the login page look more like we expect it to. Great. Note that the card is actually arranged in the middle. In this presentation view, a portion of my screen at the bottom is actually hidden. So it appears a little bit below, but it's actually being arranged in the middle of the page. We'll stop here for now. In the next lesson, we'll see how we can manually make our authentication URL query when the user clicks the sign in with Google button.